Welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of On the Grind. I am your host, William A. Neal, Communications and Government Affairs Officer for Belize Sugar Industries Limited, BSI. As you may know, On the Grind, BSI's flagship production, is a magazine-style broadcast show designed to inform, educate, and communicate with viewers the way the northern sugar industry works. If you have been following the show, then you may know this is episode 2 of season 2 and part 2 of our sustainability special. If you haven't, then we encourage you to catch it on Belize Sugar Industries Limited YouTube channel or Facebook, where they are posted and always available. Of course, our hope remains that we will provide insight into the northern sugar industry, demonstrate the way things work from the farm to the factory and everything in between as we work on transforming the industry to face with excellence the challenges, especially those born from climate change. The show, produced internally by the BSI Communications Department, highlights people, projects, and programs aimed at continuing the industry's transformation and evolution on the road to sustainability. Speaking of sustainability, in our first show, we looked at ASR's global commitment to sustainability and also at a new program in collaboration with the Belize Zoo to protect jaguars. In this show, we start with an in-studio interview with our VP of Corporate Social Responsibility, CSR, Rafael Vayá. In this conversation, VP Vayá lays out ASR's decade-long commitment to CSR and maintaining compliance and certification. He explores the business model in which companies integrate social and environmental concerns in their business operations and interactions with their stakeholders instead of only considering economic profits. He also drills down to BSI's programs and speaks about the future of CSR at BSI. Are we on the right track? Here's Rafael.
There are many definitions about corporate social responsibility, but it mostly focuses on ensuring that a company is doing the right thing. And there are very old definitions where it focuses on affecting the triple bottom line. That means affecting the people, the social aspect, the economic aspect for a business, and also the not causing any damage to the environment. So, as you know, 10 years ago, ASR decided to take a leadership role in the CSR, or corporate social responsibility, operational sustainability. Now everything called ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And that was a huge responsibility for the organization, because when you make a decision like that, you are taking a big commitment, and the commitment spreads throughout the entire organization, across the board, including Belize and BSI, right? So when we first started with our CSR efforts, and when I joined the company almost 10 years ago now, one of my first goals was to get every single entity in the organization enrolled in our CSR efforts and CSR activities, including BSI. So BSI was, I guess, one of my initial projects, very important as one of the entities. So they enrolled in the program, if I recall correctly, in 2015. We built fundamental pillars about compliance related to sustainability, to CSR, providing a good understanding of what is this about, right? And then throughout time, we have been raising the bar. I think we are a company that we are always looking for continuous improvement. right? Just meet the basics is not enough. And you can also see that in the people that work with us, right? And work for us. People that have ambitions, they want to do better. They want to get, to the next level, right? So more than trying to convince people, I think people, they are realizing themselves of what they can do to get to the next level. And you can see it constantly. That to me has a tremendous value.
When you're looking at certification, for example, and the audit, how important is that in terms of not just meeting those goals, but trying to go beyond and be aspirational?
So I always say that certification standards are correct if the company that is become certified is taking ownership of it. It's not just a certificate that you put on the wall, it's what is behind it. And the people, not only, when the auditors come every year to check that everything is in order. No, if any auditor shows up any day during the year, we should be fine and we shouldn't be nervous. Because we are doing the right thing the 365 days of the year, right? We're not just preparing for the audit. So taking that ownership is fundamental. Being certified meets some requirements from certain customers that are looking for that certified sugar, and all the other projects and all the other initiatives that we are doing, I think they are showing that. Yes, we've become certified. This is the third, fourth time that we renew our certification. We are being proactive. We're taking that leadership role that we were asked to do 10 years ago.
What would you say is the cumulative benefit of certification for any company, and in particular BSI?
I mean, I think in Europe has a great benefit for our European market. There is a demand for certified sugar, specifically for the standard that we use here in Belize. In the US market, the demand for this particular certification is not as big. Having said that, when we talk to our customers and we say, by the way, any sugar arriving in these two refineries where sugar from Belize is delivered every year, that sugar is certified. And that automatically put customers at ease, because they know that sugar that is arriving to them from Belize, is complying with, human rights standards, environmental standards, laws and regulations, and so on. There is an additional factor now that we need to keep in mind, is that there are new regulations and legislation related to CSR and sustainability. Okay, the European Union recently launched something called the CSR initiative, where companies are going to have to report, the due diligence concerning their supply chains. Canada, Australia, France, the US is not as advanced as these other countries yet, but I think it's coming. So that will help also to meet these new requirements. So that's an important factor as well. But that is what we should be doing already. So that to me is the minimum standard. We should be compliant with laws, regulations. We should have management systems. Now, opening markets, possibly depending on the location. That's probably also an added benefit. Yes.
So would you say then that when it comes to certification, is it also tied to integrity? Because you talk about being audited, right? And I think integrity very often is defined as doing the right thing even when no one is looking.
Right.
So when the audit comes, how does that reinforce the integrity of any institution, and in this case, BSI?
I think the integrity, as I mentioned before, it should be 360 days a year, not only the 1 week that this audit lasts, right? I mean, that should be always there. The certification is a way for us to certify the outside world that we are doing the right thing, and that if customers want to have that guarantee that we are doing the right thing, they can come to us and say, listen, so we are selling you sugar that is undergone this strict process, and it certifies that we comply human rights and compliance with the environment and others. So that integrity is always there. It should be there, right?
If you had to, there's a cost associated with certifications, right? What would you say makes that worthwhile?
To me, the cost is minimum. And let me tell you why. If, as a company, we are doing the right thing, there is no extra cost. We have, our employees use PPE already, right? We comply with laws and regulations. We have, water and shade programs on the fields. We provide training. We have management systems and policies that we monitor, and we have a system where if there is deviation of compliance, automatically that's going to trigger a red flag, and it's going to say, we need to address that immediately. So I don't think there is an additional cost, to be honest with you, if a company is doing the right thing.
I have two final questions. One, what would you say is the biggest challenge with talking about corporate social responsibility, or ESG?
So, look, before I joined ASR, I have worked in several industries in corporate social responsibility, right? And this going from textile, it's been coffee, flowers, electronics, diamonds, different. Cane sugar by far is the most complex one, okay? Because it has a lot of pieces moving all the time. I was used to work with people from many different cultures, and you learn that throughout the years. So, but I think patience is one of the biggest challenges that you have to learn how to, I guess, patience and persistence. You're gonna be very stubborn, and until you don't get it done, you're not gonna stop. But yes, you have to be persistent. You have to be resilient. Yeah, social responsibility deals with people. Sometimes we forget about it. But corporate social responsibility deals with people. Yes, there is an economic factor tied to it, but we need to understand what are the needs of these people that we are asking also to comply with our efforts, and how can we support them in order for them to comply as well. So yeah, I mean, I think being able to be persistent, resilient, keep going in spite of the difficulties.
Final question. What's the biggest joy for you when it comes to your job?
That every single day of the year is different. There is not a single day when I go to the office or when I'm traveling that is going to be the same day. It's always new challenges, corporate social responsibility, or operational sustainability, or the environmental, social, and governance, as we call it now. Is a very, it's not a stagnant field. It's always changing. Every year there's going to be new hot issues. It's going to be new things that we have to meet, new areas that we need to focus on. So it's constantly changing, and that to me has a tremendous incentive. Also, the fact that I can communicate with people, and I interact with people. To me, that's a great asset in my job, and I really enjoy it. I mean, I also enjoy working in the office, but the fact that I am closer to people and I'm able to communicate and get things done a lot of times just by going to visit some of our suppliers, that has a lot of value, and I really enjoy it.
And what would you say to John and Jane Public about BSI and how we manage our CSR objectives?
I am extremely pleased of what I've seen because I lived this from when it first started. I was the first one asking BSI to undergo an audit, a social audit. It was a gap analysis audit, and weaknesses came up, and how the team, how the BSI throughout the years is been addressing all these and improving and improving and improving. But we haven't stopped there, and we keep going. And there is an expansion, and there are new projects talking about new areas, like regenerative agriculture and reduction of carbon emissions, and we continue to focus in on the human rights piece. We brought customers and partnered, and we had the best the Farmers Field School. So I think the progress has been made throughout the years. I think it's been absolutely amazing, and I congratulate the BSI for what has been done.
From the broad ASR global perspective, we now switch to the local work on the ground here at BSI that began almost 3 years ago with the establishment of the Sustainability Department. Sustainability Manager Rebecca Bobadilla has more than a decade of experience in conservation, specifically in protected areas and natural resources management, spanning terrestrial and marine spaces. Rebecca's passion for wildlife and the environment dates back to her childhood and fuels her work at BSI. She has worked to establish the first sustainability department at BSI, guided by the ASR Global Sustainability Commitment and team. Why is sustainability of interest to her? In her own words, here's Rebecca.
William, I think sustainability in general has always been a part of my mantra. But when we look at it in the private sector, I think it is really revolutionary because you don't typically get to see it within a business space. Normally, you would hear it within the NGOs or within the government spaces. So coming from a private sector and being able to make that impact, I think has really been the main driver for me.
When we talk about industry or a private business creating a sustainability department, why is that kind of forward thinking, but yet something that is very necessary?
So when I think about sustainability, William, I think about it as a game changer for any organization or for any business. And the reason why I say that is because it allows you to look at things holistically. It allows you to really get out of that comfort space and be innovative, but at the same time strategic, because you want to look at what are those business actions that really drive the biggest impacts. And it's not just about the business itself, but also it incorporates people and the environment.
And when you talk about industry, people think that those things are diametrically opposed, people, environment, and business, big business.
So when it comes to sustainability, again, we think about 3 Ps, right? And ultimately, sustainability is going to be that sweet spot between your business, between people, and between planet. So it means that you need to focus on all of these 3 things for you to really say you're being sustainable. So if you look at the very nature of our sugar industry, it is dependent on natural resources, which means that we ought to be thinking, how is it that we manage it? How is it that we use these resources? So sustainability is perfectly fit for the sugar industry.
Let's talk about the tenets of sustainability itself. You spoke about the 3 Ps being profits, people, and planet.
Yes.
So how, as a business, do we integrate that into our processes and not let it just be, one of those things that is just because it's cool right now to talk about? How do we integrate it into BSI?
Sure. So the first thing is that we have our sustainability framework, right? And I look at it like having two major arms. So one of it is going to be the operational sustainability side, and the other one is the social side, or what we call corporate social responsibility. And this is going to focus on the human dynamic. So operational sustainability is going to look at decarbonization and energy efficiency. Both of these are like a marriage, right? They go hand in hand because it ultimately looks at how do you reduce the carbon emissions from your operations. The other thing with energy efficiency is that you're looking at optimizing absolutely everything that you do, from the minute that cane comes into the mill all the way throughout the warehousing and even the cogeneration included. We also look at resource circularity, and that really is talking about the resources that I spoke about a few minutes ago. And so we look at water, waste, we look at the energy that we're utilizing, and even if we generate our own energy through the cogeneration, we still need to be cognizant of how we utilize that energy. And we all know that we've been having an energy crisis, so energy is very critical to us. And this one in particular is coming from the cane fiber, right? The third one under operational sustainability is sustainable agriculture. And again, sustainability starts from the fields. It starts when you're going to be planting your cane. You look at soil health, you look at irrigation, you look at hazardous waste. How is it that you manage the different types of fertilizers, for instance, that you utilize? So all of these three things are what make up that operational sustainability. Now, when we move on to that social arm, it means we are incorporating people. So our employees and our communities are both a part of that. So this is where we talk about ethical sourcing. And we have here at PSI our corporate social responsibility certification. And annually, we have to kind of do the checks and balances to make sure that we're still meeting those conditions. And then, of course, with our employees, we try to share information. Every year, we also celebrate something called Earth Day. And this is where we encourage our employees to volunteer, to give something back to their communities. So each year we formalize a little committee and we come up with what is going to be our community initiative. But of course, that is only under sustainability. As we know, there are many, many other ways that we reach out to the communities. And then there has to be the governance side to the program, because we need to have a structure.
Now, BSI does not operate in a vacuum, and I know that last year we had a memorandum of understanding with the Belize Zoo. Why are programs like that critical, and what can you say about that MOU and what it aims to do?
Right. So under the sustainable agriculture section, we also have biodiversity conservation, which is a critical aspect of what we do. And so when we had a biodiversity commitment launch last year in April, we had reached out to the Belize Zoo. In fact, they are one of our most important partners as we speak. And they have been very collaborative in terms of what it is that we want to achieve, but realizing that we both have common areas of interest, and recognizing that if we pool resources together, recognizing if we have this knowledge transfer, that we're able to make a greater impact to the environment. And obviously, we know the Belize Zoo as being the best little zoo in the world, and they are well known for their communication outreach. They're known for their education. They're known for being a rehabilitation center as well for wildlife. And so we thought that, well, they're the experts in that area. And so if we want to do certain things, such as trainings for our staff, again, going back to us being within this natural resource space, then we have to reach out to the experts. And so it is partnerships like these that are very significant to what it is we want to achieve, because we cannot achieve it on our own. So some of those partners have already been established, and we continuously seek even more partnerships to ensure that we can do much, much more.
What would you say has been the attitude of employees towards creating a culture of sustainability?
Well, I think sustainability is a journey. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but I think in this 2 years since I started with BSI, I have seen a lot of changes, different perspectives towards what is sustainability. Because again, I think if you don't involve your people, then you can't expect them to know what is happening. And so having that communication with them, being able to let them understand that they're an important part of that, because at the end of the day, it's people that drive sustainability.
My final question, what do you see within the next 2 years, for example, as perhaps a major achievement that you can aim for BSI?
I can talk to you about some of what we've done and what we have in the pipeline for the future. So when it comes to this Northern Sugar Industry biodiversity commitment, I think that was very something different, something great for the company. And it looks at various areas, because there are some lands that are under BSI property that we recognize it's important for its ecosystem goods and services. And so our aim is to rehabilitate that area to ensure that it serves a bigger purpose. It is not under cane cultivation. And so recognizing that it has important purposes for wildlife and also for climate mitigation. We also had the launch of a sustainable agriculture checklist. And this is just a short little manual that we developed with all of those best practices for agriculture, but looking at it from a natural resources perspective. So we look at air, we look at water, we look at soil and biodiversity. And the intent with that manual is to be able to share that with the farmer associations. The third section is really outreach, but it's twofold because it does involve our own employees, where we're doing some of these trainings that I mentioned. The Jaguar training was the first that we did, and there's going to be a series of those coming along in the future. We also have some field trips that we had committed that we would fund for cane farmers' children, because really to become an ambassador for sustainability, you need to start from you're small, and we think that this is a good strategy. And then the fourth one, we did a donation to the National University for a soil laboratory, because we do recognize as well the importance of soil health to our industry as well. I mean, we want to ensure that we have higher productivity, that we have better quality in our cane as well. And so all of these things really bring together what is really sustainability. And of course, projecting into the future, because we have many things in the pipeline. We do anticipate that we will fully be having our carbon asset development program. We have already, we do tracking of our carbon emissions, but of course we do have many other things, many other ideas that we intend to implement. But of course we'll be sharing more of that as the time comes by.
In our chat, Rebecca spoke about BSI's Northern Sugar Industry biodiversity commitment. Through this commitment, BSI partners with the Belize Zoo and the Palm Beach Zoo via its Sustainability and Corporate Social Responsibility program, and seeks to prioritize decarbonization, resource conservation, and sustainable agriculture. The Northern Sugar Industry biodiversity commitment includes the following. 1. Donation of $10,000 to the University of Belize to help create a national soil testing laboratory at Hummingbird Lab in Belmopan, with a focus on procedures and protocols for comprehensive agricultural soil testing. 2. Conserving BSI land in the Corozal District, which provides habitat for wildlife and carbon sequestration. Preserving this land will ensure balance in the ecosystem for generations to come. 3. The publication of a sustainable cane farming manual entitled Growing Sugar Cane Around Protected Areas and Biological Corridors, Harmonizing Agriculture with Nature, which highlights the shared natural resources needed for both agriculture and nature, and the importance of sustainable farming practices for healthy communities and the environment. And 4. funding of field trips for cane farmers' children to the Belize Zoo, and protected areas to engage them in nature-based activities, since we believe that harmonizing our day-to-day activities with nature starts from an early age. And also, coordinating Jaguar training modules for BSI employees. In late last year, in celebration of International Jaguar Day, BSI collaborated with the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center for the first Jaguar Awareness Training. We caught up with Jamal Andrewin Bond, Conservation Program Manager at the Belize Zoo and Tropical Education Center, who shares the importance of the training sessions, and Chasen Rodriguez, one of our security officers who participated in the training. Here are their different perspectives.
So generally, the zoo is known, especially in Belize, for being a venue, a living classroom for schools, for academic institutions, for school children, teachers, parents, and so on, and recreationally on the weekends, especially for Belizean families. But today, it was a pleasure and opportunity to be able to engage the private sector in a meaningful and immersive way through the workshop we were able to facilitate for ASR BSI. Given that we always talk about stakeholders in conservation and people that have influence and the potential to impact the survivorship, the longevity of some of the species that we are responsible for and care for on a daily basis, like the jaguars. Especially at the landscape level. So since they tend to traverse different areas throughout the country, they move through different types of habitats and through human-dominated landscapes. So being able to engage a private sector player like ASR BSI that has lands within or near areas that jaguars traverse and are also engaging stakeholders themselves, their staff, their networks that may encounter these animals on a regular basis, whether through the farmlands they own, by traversing the highways and so on, and having these interactions with the animals. It's an opportunity to us to ensure that as much as possible these interactions are neutral at the very best, or at least positive, rather than being conflict or an altercation where either the animal or people are harmed in that interaction. I really appreciated the questions, the commentary, the perspectives they brought to the table, being from not just from the private sector and one company, but being from all these different departments, having different skill sets, different backgrounds, different daily jobs basically that are very different from our own, but then also they themselves having their own, secondary livelihoods, being from communities that represent, again, places or areas in the jaguars range that often will come across them or grow up knowing about them. It was interesting to hear, their beliefs, their concerns, but in a positive way where there's opportunity for dialogue. We often, we assume or we understand that not everyone's perspective of a jaguar will be positive or warm. They are an apex predator. They do come into conflict with people. And so there's often negative associations or tensions and reservations about these animals. And we didn't detect any of that with the audience today because I believe they were genuinely here to learn and they were interested and motivated by what we had to share, not just through the content we were able to share in a classroom setting, but the participatory activities, getting their perspectives, their descriptions of the animal, and then of course the highlight being able to meet these animals in a safe space, learning their stories, seeing them living, breathing, and doing what they do as jaguars, and being able to walk away from that experience hopefully with a bit more understanding as to what these animals truly represent in Belize.
So being a part of the security team means that we are always out in the field patrolling. We have guys that are out there, and I believe this information is very key for us, particularly since we deal with a lot of wildlife when we're out there. And something that's pretty interesting, what the instructor said was there's a lot of encounters in local areas or populated areas with these animals, and knowing how to respond to them is very important. The other day there was that incident with the jaguar out in Hattieville, and it was surprising that the jaguars were actually being chased by dogs, right? That's how they got into the warehouse. And Out at the factory, we're surrounded by wildlife and vegetation, so it's not impossible for probably one of the employees or our own security personnel to have a sighting of these animals in there, right? So being able to get this information and passing it down to the rest of our team, I think is gonna play a crucial role in knowing how to respond to them. My views on jaguars before this session was, I think, what everyone normally or typically feels, which is fear, right? I was telling my coworkers just now, when we were in there, there's that little statue of the jaguar, and the minute I see that, if I see a jaguar looking at me like that, I'm about to hit the road, right? And I think now learning about how we're supposed to interact with these animals or these wildlife, it's, of course, I'm still gonna be a little bit scared if I were to encounter one of them, but knowing that I'm not supposed to, just take off and run, knowing that these animals are more afraid of me than I am of them, I think it's very important.
As you may know, BSI is the largest employer in the North, with more than 500 people powering our operations. And if you add in all the temps and casuals, that number moves closer to 700. In our ongoing segment entitled People Power and Empowered, we continue to highlight the diversity, job, gender, age, among other things, of our workforce. See if you spot any familiar faces, from friends to family. You never know. With that, we've come to the end of another episode of On the Grind. Once again, we hope that it has been the right amount of edutainment, education, and entertainment on the Northern Sugar industry. Please continue to like, share, and comment as we shine a light on our Northern Sugar industry. We leave you once again with our theme song consisting of factory sounds harvested and arranged by Eldrick Tillett and Chandler White to capture the industrial symphony that is Tower Hill. Listen carefully, and when the siren sounds, know that we are only changing shifts because we stay on the grind 24/7 on the clock. Until next time, I am your host, William A. Neal. Thank you for tuning in.